I'm so excited to have you on the Plentiful Goddess podcast. And I'm so excited it worked out so quickly. I want to give you, before I let you introduce you, a little bit of a background story, how I actually found you. So I, like 2, 3 weeks back or something, I was struggling with my throat. And I was like, okay, I'm not sick, but I don't have a voice. And so I was like, is my throat chakra blocked? And so what I did is I went on Spotify. I was like, blocked throat chakra. And then I found your podcast and I was like, okay, that's great. I'm going to listen to it. And then I kept listening to like more episodes. And I found this one episode where like it just touched my heart so much about like your story and like in school, and you were so different, and like you just shared it in such a beautiful way. And I was like, okay, I need to reach out to this girl. I need to like talk to her. I want to have her on my podcast. And here we are. I really appreciate you taking the time this morning, this afternoon from me. So that's my little story about you. But I think the best way would be for you to introduce yourself to us and let us know who you are, what you do, what your podcast is about. That would be great if you could do that.
Yes. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Catherine. I am the podcast host of Chakras and Cuss Words podcast. I'm also the brand creator of the spiritual brand as well. So, a little bit about me, what I do is I really focus on bringing education of modalities to people. If it is balancing your chakras, if it is using the art of tarot to kind of find a pathway for you when you're coming within struggles or coming over obstacles. I would say my podcast is a combination of spiritual practices and also truth and realness of modern day obstacles that many of us face. Like many of us face the balance of how do I incorporate my spiritual self with having to pay bills and having to, go to the grocery store and having to like deal with my kids. And just, it's a really truthful podcast. It is called Chakras and Cuss Words for a reason, because we do tap into that area that sometimes we don't like to talk about. I just want to eat Haagen-Dazs all day and lay in bed and tell my husband, you know what? I don't care what you have to say. So it's definitely a podcast that I would recommend to everybody, because it's just a little bit of fun and just overall self-care, awareness, and growth. So
Yes. And of course, you can also learn a lot from you and your knowledge about that. So, that episode that I found was super knowledgeable. And I was like, oh wow, okay, I didn't never think about my throat chakra in such an extensive way. I'm a yoga teacher myself, so I have a little bit of background on like, okay, what do chakras do? What are they important for? And like, how can you unblock them with like, asanas? But I never like fully understood how they can actually be blocked. I never had that connection with myself in terms of like, okay, so what's going on right now? Like, why did this happen? So even now, still afterwards, still trying to find like the reason, like what happened. Like I always think, I say the truth, I do all of these things, so why doesn't it feel aligned? So I think your podcast is also really great because it gives us as listeners so much more in-depth information that sometimes, you being on your own can get very confusing and can get very like complicated as well, especially if you Google it, like you have so much information. And that's, what we also do in my podcast is really about sharing knowledge in an easy way where it's like, okay, I don't need to overcomplicate things. It's all about wellness, and it's all about feeling good and on a spiritual and being on a spiritual path and being on a health path and really making it, easy and not overcomplicating it.
yeah.
So you want to say something?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, a lot of people, the throat chakra and the third eye are probably the ones that I get most of my questions about. A lot of people always want to go directly, I want to tap into my third eye. How do you have this, how do you have such a strong intuitive state? How do you have these, quote unquote psychic abilities? How do you have these areas where you're able to see a lot more? And it's like sometimes people have to understand that the three main chakras are probably the most important. The rest come with a lot of balance, because having a strong, open, wide open third eye sometimes isn't the best thing for everybody. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you said that. So one of my questions, definitely, because I know people might be listening to this, because I never spoke about chakras on my podcast. We speak of many different things, but we never spoke about that. So how would you describe in an easy
Mm,
way what
yeah.
chakras are?
So the chakras are basically a philosophy and a tradition of a spiritual practice that originated from India, solely originated with the Hindi population. And one person sees a chakra might be another way that somebody else might view a chakra as well. So some people see the chakras as internal spiritual, almost like spinning wheels, like lights. So and the chakras are very much related to the physical anatomy of a person. They are, as one would say, connected to nerve plexes. They're connected to energy sources within the body. So, for instance, like your root chakra, your sacral chakra, if you're experiencing areas of like depression or instability, it possibly could be your root chakra. And then you start to move up the chakra. I guess you could say the chakra ladder, the chakra chain. They are located in the mid of in your core center. So when you think of your core, it's right down the middle from your head all the way down to like your pelvic bone area. Some people see the chakras as also energy is being received from the external. So you're receiving this energy from the external and you're taking it within your internal chakra. So that could be a reason why you might have a chakra block. So the chakras also are formulated during certain times of your life, during certain times of growth processes. So, for instance, a child who is possibly in the elementary school age, like six or like from 6 to 13, might have experienced areas with their throat chakra because they've been told multiple times, hey, quiet. Kids are to be listened, not heard. So, different times that we experience these events or we experience people from the external feeding into our chakras, it could make a block or it could hinder us. Somebody who has like a excessive chakra, because a lot of people focus on the deficient. They're like, my chakra is blocked, my chakra isn't aligned, da 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 da. But they don't realize that they probably have an excessive chakra somewhere where this chakra is just pushing out, spinning like crazy, giving so much energy in this one area where it's leaving the others either blocked or depleted. So if you have a solar plex chakra that is just very, you're always doing stuff, like you're very high willpower and you're kind of almost getting that area where, it's all about you, what you create, what you do, what you see. You don't trust anybody else because you trust yourself, because you know what, you're right all the time. And that's who you are. Then your heart chakra might be depleted. You have a hard time trusting other people. Not only you can't trust other people, but other people don't feel secure around you. You don't have good boundaries. Your relationship isn't necessarily working in the right direction. And you might have areas with money where you're having this impulsive state where you're spending money, not balancing your money, or having areas where you see a depletion in the heart chakra. So it's not always about one chakra being blocked. It's sometimes about what chakra is getting the most energy, which chakra is spinning out a crazy, because that's corely where your main focus is. And then you have to realign them or balance. So balancing the chakras is something that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of truthfulness. A lot of times people don't want to hear like, hey, you're kind of an asshole. You know what I mean? You don't take in other people's ideas. You're a great leader. You can run a successful business, but you're still not balanced. And sometimes people don't like to hear that. But that's what balancing the chakras is. It's and there's different modalities that you could do to tap in. There's yoga, there's Reiki, there's having food that's concentrated on opening up that chakra, taking it back down, removing certain foods from the diet. So it's all kinds of stuff you could do. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. You gave a great overview about this. So, how can someone know if you have an overactive, chakra, or if it's blocked? Like sometimes, especially if this is very new to us. And I forgot, I'm also a Reiki master, so like I learned that too, and
Yeah.
that was a new way of like opening up my mind completely. I was like, oh wow, there's so much more to like life than
Right.
just
Right.
what we see. And with Reiki, I learned I was able to tap into other people and into myself, and realize, oh wow, okay, there is something going on. So how can someone that's not a Reiki master, doesn't do yoga, figure out like, okay, there's something going on and I probably need to balance it out?
Right. So one of my tips that I do kind of with my clients when they first come in and they're like, I want to learn more about balancing my chakras. And everybody, not everybody, but most people usually feel that their chakras are blocked. And most of the time, there's an area where it's actually excessive. So what I like to do is I have a scenario where you break down what each chakra is. And then we ask questions like, okay, in this area, where do you feel your strengths? Where are the areas? Because I don't like to say weaknesses, because many times we have these areas where we say, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at meditating. I'm not good at speaking my truth. I'm not good at it. And it's not a weakness. It's just something we haven't worked on yet. So I say, well, what areas do you want to work on more? Because that's usually what it is. There's an area that they want to work on more that they're not fully confident about. So everybody has a chakra that they always kind of like tune straight to. And it's either, most of the time, it's either the third eye or the throat. A lot, it's usually communication with their spouse. But most of the time, it's more than the throat. It's actually the root and the sacral. Because if you don't feel comfortable bringing up conversations about intimacy, stability, safety, longevity in the relationship, that's why your throat chakra is feeling depleted, not because you can't say it and not because you can't communicate it, but because there's other areas. So we take a deep dive into what are areas that they feel very confident in and what are the areas that they feel that they need to work on. Of course, there are I guess you could say, the physiological parts of the chakras where people will say, I've lost my throat. I've lost my voice. I started stuttering. All of a sudden, I started stuttering. I don't know why. I've never stuttered before, but all of a sudden, I'm stuttering. So, what's going on with the throat chakra? Then, out of the blue, people start to get headaches. Well, what brought on this headache? What was the beginning of this headache? What is it that this headache, it could also be something that's tied to a disease process or something that has a lot to do with also stress, or I'm getting a lot of shoulder and back pain. What is this from? What is this from? So a lot of people will go to Reiki masters, and they'll go and they'll want to see the shift in the energy. They'll want to feel it right away. And while you get that gratitude of, I feel better, my energy is now shifted and I feel like I can move. But if that chakra is still depleted, blocked, or excessive, that pain's going to come back. And that area is going to come back where you're going to have to continue to work on it. So it is a practice that you have to work on every day. And that's what I really help people do, is find what chakras they need to work on every day.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because every time I also have Reiki sessions with clients, I tell them exactly that. Like, you're gonna feel great today, maybe tomorrow, maybe in a week still, you're gonna feel it. But now it's you that has to put in the work. Like, you have to put in the work to like really figure out what's going on there, right? And I always see Reiki as like this start to like identify what's going on, helping you develop it, but then it's up to you to decide how you want to continue with it, right? And so now that you also talked about the throat, like I can see myself a little bit in that, because I felt like an inner voice was trying to tell me something all of the time, and I would like ignore it, especially around my business. Like my inner voice was telling me like, oh, you should shift, you should do something else. And I was like, oh no, not right now, it's not the right time. And I feel like this is probably it, what happened, that there was something that wanted to come out and I was just suppressing it. And it definitely makes a lot of sense now that you say that. So I really appreciate you sharing that. So how does your process look like? Like, how do you check in with yourself? Because usually the way that I do it with my clients is, I tell them like every single morning, check in with yourself. I don't know, place your hand on your heart and your womb space and see how you feel. And then, you kind of can get a good grasp of like how the day is going to go. So what is it that you do every morning or every day, how you check in with yourself?
My morning ritual is very, I would say sometimes it's very fast paced, where it's like, ooh, that doesn't seem like a relaxing morning ritual. Well, but it is. It's very like, I get up right away, I chug my coffee, and I head to the gym. Like, I'm one of those people who needs to have like my blood flowing. I don't like stagnation. If I'm moving my chakras and I'm moving my blood and I'm moving, I have to be in an area where my blood is flowing. I feel it. My heart is racing. So that's my morning practice. I'll go home. I'll spend some time with my dogs, with my children, and also just kind of sit in an area where it's like quiet. I try not to check my phone first thing in the morning, just, have my quiet area. I do, when I'm setting intentions, I do usually speak my intentions out loud, even if it's just me, that I say them out loud because I feel like the universe is hearing me. So I do that. Usually after I start to get ready, before I go to work, I'll go outside barefoot and I'll ground, and it's freezing. And this is what a lot of people don't like to hear, is they think that spirituality and this beautiful place comes from, meditation, and it comes from this very comfortable feeling of self-care. And in actuality, sometimes it comes from our most uncomfortable states. So I will go out and ground barefoot for about like 3 to 5 minutes, take in some fresh, cold air, because it makes me uncomfortable. It really makes me uncomfortable. So I do that as long as I can tolerate it. I speak to the birds. I mean, I'm sounding a little cuckoo right here now, but there's the owl. I listen to what the owl, if he's doing his whoos, I listen to what he's got to say. And I start my day with moving forward. I also do pick up a lot of energy from the outside area. So like I said, I speak to the birds. If I see a blue jay, I'll try to say the meaning of the blue jay. That's my throat chakra saying I have not stated something that's holding me back. So I try to pick up messages throughout. At night is when I really do my, as one might say, my self-care, my releasing and taking it all out after the day, when I either shower or I do a ritual bath. I'm very big on ritual baths. So I do a ritual bath and I scrub off whatever I need to take away from me. And I will set intentions with that bath. And then I usually do my meditation. And then after that, I mean, I don't do this every day. These are just some of my daily practices that I do incorporate most of the time. And then I will either do intuitive sketching or journaling. I try to remember my dreams because I do work with my intuition a lot. So that's something that I do a lot of tarot readings that people ask me, they'll ask me direct questions. Sometimes I give them dates. Oh, wow. Actual events, and then they call me maybe 2 weeks later and was like, oh my goodness, remember you told me something was going to happen on the 15th? This happened.
Wow.
So I do practice with my third eye chakra a lot because it is something that a lot of times I'm getting these universal downloads where I have to, for me, not that I have to for other people, but for me, I would like a better, I guess you could say, a better understanding of what it's trying to tell me. So that's a little bit about my daily practices. So I do a lot of like intuitive sketching and drawing and card pulls. Yeah.
I love this so much.
And
It's
then I go to bed.
amazing. And it's
And
happening
then I go to bed. Yeah.
amazing. So um,
Yes, I do it I
I
do it pretty frequently. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned that as well, energy around us. And before I, did Reiki and yoga, I wasn't aware how much the energy around me affects me. So I live in Berlin. It's a very busy city. I live right next to the main road. I'm manifesting to move out of here. So I'm not going to stay here anymore. But of course, I live right next to the main road. It's very loud. Again, the people in Berlin, the energies are a little off. They are a little different. And when I arrived here, I didn't see it. I didn't feel, or I didn't see it, but I felt it. And I was like, what's going on? Why do I feel so off in this city? Like no motivation, tired, drained, like not feeling like really wanting to even spend time with people. I'm not depressed. That's just what I felt. And I'm a person, I don't like to blame things on outside things. Like I always know it comes from within, but I do know that there are certain things that do affect me, like the energy in the city that I live in. So is that a real thing that you can take on energies of people, of the city? Like, because sometimes I'm not sure.
Yes. So a lot of people, and when we think about the chakras as well, if the chakras are internal and external, meaning we are producing energy that people are receiving from us having either excessive or unbalanced chakras, that also means that they're external, that we are receiving energies from other people. So that's why it's very important to be mindful, like who's in your circle, be mindful of the energy of the house. When you start to go into more of like an energy state of mind. So there's certain houses, there's certain homes that for whatever reason, the land, the energy has been tainted or rusted. It's been maybe through too much. Like I just did a TikTok on retiring your tarot deck because at a certain point, you're reading energy for so many people. You could cleanse your tarot deck. You can, set intentions to protect it. But after a certain point, this deck is receiving so much energy from other people that you need to retire it. You need to put it to rest. You need to, just see it as photos or pictures, but not do actual readings on it because the deck is picking up all that energy from other people, their questions, their concerns, their worries, their enlightenment, their happiness. So the deck alone has a lot of energy. So I did how do you know when it's time to retire your tarot deck? And then the same thing with a home. If you were purchasing a home, moving into a home, one of the things I always like to ask for somebody who is very trying to get in a state where their energy is very abundant, where they're manifesting energies that are moving towards their intentions, because we can all manifest anxiety, we could all manifest fear, we could all manifest sickness, we could all manifest other things. But when we're trying to manifest joy, when we're trying to manifest happiness, when we're trying to manifest a good prosperity, what is it in the areas that you want? What is it in the area of the home that you live in? So I like to ask, like, if I'm getting ready to move into a new home, well, how come the old people, why did they move? What did they move from? one of the homes that I purchased, because I have purchased homes before, one of the homes that I purchased as a foreclosure. Was it a good investment? Yes, it was. It was a great investment. Was it a good home to live in? Not necessarily, because the energy within that home had multiple people who lived there for reasons that they lost their home. So it was a home that, we had the home blessed. We did lots of work with the home, and it became a good home for somebody else. And I do still follow the house, and and the energy within that house is never going to fully leave,
Mm.
because that's the foundation. If you're looking at the house as a chakra system, that's the foundation as well. And people can move into the house, but at sometimes you have to really address, is this coming from the roots up, or is this, and we moved from the home because the energy in that house was not feeding our purpose anymore. So we moved from that home. And when we seeked a new home, it was more about everything we dreamt of, everything that we wanted to create, everything that we wanted to live in was in that home. And then that makes a huge difference. If you purchase a home where multiple people are having divorces and they had to sell the house because they had a divorce, that home's energy has shifted. The house is a capsule. It holds energy within the walls. If you can't shift that energy out, then it's probably not the best thing. A lot of people hear, well, I don't want to buy a house if somebody died in it. You hear that a lot, but why not? They probably had an amazing life. They probably raised their children. They probably had enough fortune where they were able to die in their home. That's a big thing, to pass away in your home. Yes, their spirit may have left from the house, but what did the walls see? What was the energy the walls gave? So it kind of depends on where you want to invest your energy, because where you invest your energy, it's an investment back to you. So that's why when I actually work with a real estate agent, and that is one of the things that we do have really deep conversations about, is the energy of certain houses, why certain houses can't sell, why they have a hard time with buyers or sellers. And sometimes it's possibly the energy of the house is blocking the sale, or there's a lot, energy's everywhere. It's everywhere. This is all one big energy cycle that we live in.
Yeah. So would you recommend, like, I mean, I'm going to move out of Berlin anyways, but if someone feels uncomfortable in a city, feels the energies that they're off, probably moving is a good option, right? If you feel like, I feel like I'm doing all of the work, but I'm still taking on all of it.
Right. So what you should do is you should basically write out, what is your, like, it already happened. It already happened. What is your dream? What is the dream house that you can live in? What is the dream home area? What is the price range? What does it look like? What does it feel when you get home? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel like you want to leave all the time? Do you ever see people and they always want to leave their home? How come they want to leave their home? Your home should be your safest area. Some people hate staying home. They got to go, they got to do this, they got to do that, because there's energy in that home that they're not feeling comfortable about. Because when they chose their home, they chose it for reasons that weren't necessarily the reason of being safe and being secure in your house. So this house actually was, I had a robbery in this house when I was home alone and I was asleep. And most people would say, at first I felt very uncomfortable being in the house. But then what I came to the circumstance of realizing is that this home experienced an event. What we did after the event created more safety within the home. It was a new home, so it was just learning its energy. But this house was everything that I wanted. Like my husband's talking about possibly moving because he wants to get a different house. But I'm like, well, right now, this energy with this home is where I want to be. So I don't think we're moving, you know. But so you kind of know, but you'll have to write it out what it is that you want. Exactly.
Yeah, I already
And
have
what
it
you
in
will
mind, so
feel
it's-
when you're there.
yeah, it's already there. I have
Yeah,
it. I have
it's
like
fun.
your image in my mind. I'm like not trying, I'm manifesting it. So that was just
Yes.
like a question, like, am I imagining it or is it actually real? Because oftentimes, you know, you get to hear people like, oh yeah, you have everything that you want. Like, why do you still want more or need more or whatever? And it's like, because I freaking want to. Like, I deserve this. I deserve to have my
Right.
dream home, right? I want to
Right.
live
And
somewhere where you say like feel comfortable and feel like you want to be there.
right. And that's your energy telling you that it's time for you to grow, or it's time for you to shift or pivot. A lot of people are resentful when they hear other people want to keep growing. That is something that's very hard for others to understand. If I'm comfortable where I'm at, why aren't you? Some people aren't meant to be in a small container. Some people are meant to continue to grow, and that's just the way it is. And some people are meant to stay in a container that fits them snug, fits them tight. And if they're comfortable with that, that's fine. But when there's somebody else who needs to shift out of their container, we have to let them grow.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge conversation. That's why like spending time with the right people is also so important, right?
Yes.
I talk about that so much too.
Yes, and that's a huge thing that people have to understand is the energy that you receive from others makes a huge difference in your life. So if you are hanging out with people who don't have jobs, who don't have an idea, and who aren't moving, and they're very stagnated. They're like a pond, they're like a swamp. There's no flow. You are going to become part of that. You are going to become that moss that grows on top. If you want to move, then you better start hanging around oceans and rivers. You have to look at where are you placing your energy. And if you are seeing that, well, all my friends make a certain, and I hate to really put it towards money, but in all actuality, that's what it's about, right? It's about wealth and success. If that's what most people, when they hire me, that's what they want to tap into is their wealth and their success. If you see people who are right here and they're not reaching for here, and this is who you continually are spending your energy with and you're receiving energy, you're going to be right here. If you start hanging out with millionaires who are scared to lose a certain amount of money, but they know they have money to play with it, if they lose $5,000, whatever, because that's nothing to them. They're constantly in this area of moving and spending. You have to give your money back to the universe to receive it. So if you're scared to, or you're not confident to play in that area, then you have to find an area where you can gradually increase it, where you can gradually move forward, where you can gradually take that area. Well, maybe today I'm not playing with $5,000. I'm not making investments for $5,000, but I'm making investments with 50. So you're gradually giving it back to the universe and it will come in the right area. So where you spend your energy and who is in your energy circle makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I love that you
Huge
touched the
difference.
money subject because that's like, I think one of the biggest things where people get stuck with, and I love that you also said money is energy, because I still think it's a concept that a lot of people don't get because we try to hold on to it so much, right? But I love that you mentioned that. I'm curious though, what is one of the craziest things that you have manifested?
The gender of my child.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is crazy.
That is, And when I tell this story, a lot of people are like, what? You can't manifest the gender of your child. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. And there's actually people who have spoke about it before me as well. But yes, that is one of the things that I did manifest was the gender of my child. It was my son. So from the beginning, so a little bit about me was I wasn't supposed to have children. It wasn't something that was in my, I guess you could say, in my plan of growing up. I grew up with a heart condition. So my heart is basically backwards. It functions backwards. My right ventricle does the work of my left, and my left ventricle does the work of my right. So for a very long time growing up, I was very nervous about death, in the fact that, I felt like death was coming for me. I had all these stories, all these events. Most kids don't go and see a cardiologist from birth. I don't ever remember a day that I didn't have a year where I saw a cardiologist. So I was very fascinated with, when am I going to die? So as a young kid growing up, I wasn't sure if I was going to have kids. When I got a little older, I started asking the cardiologist, do you think I can have kids? Like, is this going to be something that, they said, well, if you're going to have kids, you're going to have kids early. You're going to have to start early. The older you get, the bigger the risk. So I'm like, okay. So at the age of 20, I decided that I wanted to have children. I was lucky enough where I was able to find my soulmate right away, and just kind of told him the deal, like, hey, I know we're young, but I want to have kids. I want to see my kids being raised. I figure if I have my kids early, no matter what happens, I experience most of their life, so I want to get this ball rolling. He's like, this chick is freaking weird, but okay. Okay, let's go. So I had my first at 20. I wanted a girl and a boy. I knew that automatically. My first was a girl. There was no manifesting involved. I was just very happy to have a baby. My second was a boy. I knew it was a boy from the moment I was pregnant. I continued to remind the universe that I didn't want nothing more but a boy. When I checked that I was pregnant with my pregnancy stick, I said, oh, I'm pregnant. And it's a boy, just like that. First thing I told my husband, I'm having a boy. You have to continuously remind yourself. When people would ask other people, I would hear pregnant women. And that's the thing, is, why are we so humble? Why are we so humble? It doesn't take away from our spirituality if we say what we want. Why are we so humble? Many of us will say, I just want a healthy baby. No, I want a healthy baby, and I want a boy, and a boy I had. So I concentrated on it. I manifested it. I set intentions, and it was a boy.
I loved it so much. Such a beautiful story. I love that it's like out of the ordinary. Oftentimes we think about manifesting a house, or like manifesting $1 million, or whatever it is. This is so out of the ordinary, where people actually forget, like, you can manifest anything, right? It's
right.
Like, we feel like we have no control over, but at the end of the day,
right.
like, we do have a lot of control over it. So I love that.
Yes.
In this podcast, it's really everything about empowering women and empowering them, and like being themselves, and like everything that you shared is absolutely amazing, and I'm so sure everyone's gonna love it. But I want to talk a little bit more about your personal story. That's kind of what I fell in love with when I heard your podcast, and you were just so real, and like, you as a child, like being the weird one, how you said, but you just didn't care, you just did it anyways, whatever you wanted to do, and did all of it. So how is it being different? Like, how, or why is it not a bad being different? Why is it okay to not fit in? Because I know, like, as women, we have so much pressure on like fitting in and being perfect and being the perfect everything, that it's like that we feel like it's bad to be different. I want to know how you think about that, and how that was for you.
Well, growing up with the heart condition, automatically I knew I was different. Like, anatomy wise, physiologically wise, mentally. I had to mature a lot quicker than most kids. So I knew I was different from a very young age. And it was something that for a long time, and my parents didn't have much money. They were struggling. I wanted, I'm aging myself. I wanted the cool Guess jeans, and my mom could not afford them for me. You know what I mean? So I was like, I want the cool Guess jeans, and she could not afford them for me. So there's a lot of times, I don't know what she would put me in, but she just was one of those moms who was working. She worked to make ends meet. She worked very late. And my dad was from Mexico. So I was one of those kids who did not fit in. Most kids have parents who are like, I don't know, bankers, teachers, stuff like that. My dad was a artist. He was a glass artist. He did stained glass. So he did all the churches in Oakland, a lot of stained glass in Oakland, California. He did a lot of the windows over there. So he would drive me to school in like this beat up work truck, and everybody was like, it was just, I got picked on a lot. I was a very oddball kid. I love to be outside. I don't ever remember getting invited to that many birthday parties or anything. I was kind of like that kid that, they teased or they bullied. And at some point, I would start to get, I guess you could say, ideas where I began to like stand up for myself. And I was just like, you guys are all boring anyways. You suck, so it's okay to be different. And I think a lot of us are so concentrated on, being this cookie cutter impression of what it's like to fit in. And many of us want to be that. We want to be this, I fit in with this group. This group accepts me. They accept me because they like me. They accept me because I have these nice things. They accept me because of all that doesn't matter. In the end, it really doesn't, especially with high school kids, because I'm an emergency room nurse. I actually walked away from the emergency room just this last 3 weeks. I'm now doing a different type of nursing. But at the time you see these kids who they're just looking for their identity, they're just looking like, who am I? And when you match that up like with the chakras, that's right around the third eye, that adolescent growing up. My decisions aren't quite clear because I don't take in my uniqueness. I don't take in my core, which is your throat. I don't take it in because I'm trying to be something I'm not. But when you really accept the fact that, yeah, I'm a little weird, yeah, I'm a little, I don't fit in with these people, and that's okay. There's going to be people who you are going to fit in with. There's going to be people who are going to see you for you. And that's not necessarily like your friends in high school or your friends in college or social media. Like, I think a lot of times we get fed what is accepted and we get fed what isn't accepted. So like with me, when I did the healing the witch's wound, I knew that was going to be like one of my biggest podcasts where people were going to automatically download it because it was right around the time of Halloween. And it was right around the time that a lot of women were feeling uncertain of who they were. And that's probably because their witch's wound was wide open or their witch's wound was weeping. So when you address these areas that aren't taught to us, it makes us feel a little uneasy because it's not something we're used to. But when you actually see the cultures and the traditions, like, yeah, it's okay to go outside and talk to birds. Natives have been doing it. Indigenous people have doing it from the moment they walked on this earth. Like, what were our ancestors doing? They didn't have social media. They didn't have the mall. They didn't have any of this stuff. but they were still successfully living. They were living off the land. They were living off the messages from the stars. A lot of these moon phases, that's why when I share a post about a full moon, I always say what the indigenous people called it. What did our ancestors call it? What was it called? Was it called a beaver moon or a frost moon? Depending on what hemisphere you were on, that's what it was called, because they would hunt or they would stalk. So there's certain things that people have to understand, that a lot of this individuality is coming from other areas. It's coming from other areas where we don't necessarily fit in. Not everybody can be a fisherman. Some people have to be hunters. It's just how society is.
I love that. Do you think that that uniqueness and you being different, it has led you to who you are today and what you do with like the podcast and everything?
Oh yeah, definitely. So right around the time that I did, because I've always been really big on astrology. I like astrology. I'm not an astrologer. People will ask me to read their chart. I don't do astrology. I don't like reading charts. That's not my thing, but I do like reading about astrology and learning about the traits of certain zodiac signs, and, what elements are in play, what planets mean what, and stuff like that. But when I did my podcast, and I was getting such a high energy frequency from doing the podcast, that I knew that I needed to find out more. So I was very curious about getting my birth chart. So I got my birth chart and I started dissecting it and really reading about it. And then one area said that I had to do something with speech. I had to do something with speaking up. And as a child, I was always that child because I had a learning disability where the last thing I wanted to do was speak up. No, like I was like, do not pick on me. Like whatever you do, pick on all these other kids. Do not pick on me. And of course, I really did not want to ever speak. I was just that kid who, was odd, quiet, maybe had like one friend, but didn't like to talk to other people. I just did not like to speak. So when I saw my birth chart and it said that speaking was one of my talents, I was like, that explains why I like to do the podcast. But really? So I need to incorporate in every day? And it's like, yeah, you need to speak every day. When I accepted that, and I really accepted who I was, and I accepted my intuition, and I accepted my ability of like manifesting, it just basically, the energy just went straight out. It became more than internal energy that I was holding in, and it became external energy where people saw it. People saw, like, I was on one of the good morning shows out here in Sacramento. So, and when people say like the universe gives you signs and it's up to you to accept them or not. When the newsman messaged me, I thought it was spam. I didn't even think it was real. Like I thought it was like somebody like trying to sell me something. I was like, what is he talking about? Wants me to be on TV. Like, what? Like, okay, whatever. And I like messaged him back and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Like I'm like headed to work. I'm like, what's he doing? Right. And then he messaged me again. He's like, hey, I'm really serious. I want you on the news channel. I want to feature you. And he's like, I listened to your podcast. It's like, what? So then I'm like, okay. So then I look at it and I'm like, okay. So he sends me an email. I cross-reference it. I'm like, is this real? It's those limiting self-beliefs. Is this real? This can't be real. I'm like, oh shit, this is real. Message you back. Yes, I would love to be on. Come and record me, So when you accept your energy and you accept what you can work with, what you can bring back, and what you can service to others, the energy, people will see it. and people will bring it back to you. So definitely knowing, I would say people need to know their talents and need to know that what they feel comfortable with to really manifest. Yeah.
I love that so much, that example of like when you are in your energy and you do what you're meant to do, you're going to be attracting so many opportunities and possibilities in your life, because oftentimes we end up doing things that we know intuitively are not meant for us, but we do them because of society or because we learn it that way, right? Because of so many things. So I love examples like this, because it's also, again, like it's a good reminder, because sometimes we might end up doing things that are not aligned with us. And then it feels so heavy and it feels so hard, and it shouldn't feel this way, right? Kind of like you can feel that energy in your podcast. Like it's so easy for you to just do it, to just talk about it. It's just like, it's natural. You're meant to do it. So I know I'm, aware of the time, so we have to get to the end, which makes me very sad. But I would love for you to tell us, where can people find you? Where can people contact you? What can people do with you?
Yes. So you can follow the podcast. Chakras and Cuss Words is on every platform. Your favorite listening channel, it's on there. Chakras and Cuss Words. Also, you can follow me on Instagram, Catherine_Pacheco. I have a website, chakrascusswords.com, where I do offer chakra teaching and also education. I am bringing some new courses coming soon. I did one on tarot and oracle. It was amazing. So definitely keep in contact, because I'm always doing something. That's what I feel like. I'm always doing something. Yeah.
Wow. How do you manage that? Because you said you have a full-time job as well, right?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
I do. So
Wow.
I know everybody's like, oh, okay, content creation is like the hardest part. For me, content creation is very not easy, but it's doable in the sense it's what I like to do. So for most people, it's like, I don't want to create this content because you don't like to do it. That's why. So you should hire somebody to do it. If you don't like to do it, then you should hire somebody who likes to do it. If you like to do it, you could create content like that, like that. I mean, it's like the courses, of course, take more time addressing what's in the course. If you're doing a workbook, if whatever you're doing, but when you are in that area where like learning about the moon, for me, like I already understand what each planet represents. I already understand the moon phases. I already understand most zodiac signs. So when I'm creating content for myself or for other people, it's easy because it's something I like to do. I don't have to do too much research, because a lot of it is something, I mean, like I told my listeners, at the age of 13, I was already reading about astrology and witchcraft. Like that's who I was. So I know what rituals work. I know what things are actually able for people to utilize in everyday practices versus, having to research more stuff.
I love this so much, Catherine. I loved everything about this. I feel like there was so much, like so many like knowledge, bombs of like everything.
Yeah.
We covered so much, which I really love, because I love it being, natural and intuitively like following with whatever feels right to share. So I really appreciate it. I'm also, of course, going to link your stuff in the show notes. So thank you so much from my
Yes, thank you.
loved having you on this, and I feel like there's still so much I could learn from you. So I really, really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It was great being on here. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, Catherine. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.